Welcome to this geometry review. And this first review is just going to be on part one of the test. And part one, if you remember, the learning target was students can recognize, describe, and demonstrate the properties of reflection symmetry. So on the test, you're going to have something similar to this. And it might be a triangle, it might be a different shape. And you're going to have to look at it, and you're going to have to answer the question, does the image below have reflection symmetry? So what exactly does that mean? Well, in Smart Toolbook, I'm going to put a shade on this right here. What that means is if I put a shade up to it, or a mirror up to it, would I get a mirror image? So let's look at this right here. Look at that shape. Does that shape look exactly the same as this shape? If so, it does have reflection symmetry. So what do you think the answer for this one is? Does it have reflection symmetry? Let me pull a pen out here. And the answer would be yes, it does have reflection symmetry. Definitely does. There's no question about it. Now, some of you would probably stop right here, but if we keep reading, it says, if so, draw the line/lines of symmetry and explain in detail the relationship between them. So let me pull out some straight lines here. Let's use this dashed line right here. Okay, so actually I'm going to use this right here. That way I don't have to worry about having a straight hand. So if I draw on some straight lines, we know this is a line of symmetry. It's pretty straight, isn't it? A little crooked. Is that the only line of symmetry? What if I was to go from here to here? How about from here to here? And then there's one more if I go from here to here. And you notice how they all intersect right here in the middle? So those are all different lines of symmetries that you could draw. Now the next part of the question is, if so, draw the lines of symmetry. I did that. And on these tests, you can even do things like this. Okay. I answered that. Okay. I answered this. And explain in detail the relationship between the two. Okay, I haven't done that yet, so I don't want to forget that question. So let me pull out a pen. Let's go with purple. So what is the relationship between the two? First of all, you can start talking about how both sides are mirror images of each other. So that's definitely a relationship between the two. You can talk about, simple things. You can talk about how the distance from that line to here would be the same distance from here to here. You can talk about it, so okay, let me put that down. So you can talk about the distances are the same. So you can talk about anything you want to as long as we get the idea that you understand that these are mirror images, that one side equals the other side. Now, let's go to the next question that might appear on a test. And it says, reflect the polygon over the given line. Explain the steps you took to reflect the polygon and what is the relationship between the two figures. So what I did was I took this right here and I blew it up a little bit larger right here so we can see. So you're going to need some tools to do this. And so I'm going to use a compass and I'm going to want a protractor for this. So when I'm using these tools, and I'm going to use my mouse with these tools because it's easier for me to use a mouse. So I'm going to set this off to the side right now, and I'm going to, oops, sorry about that. Here we go. Now there's different things I have to do. First of all, the first step I have to do is I'm going to have to draw a line from each of these vertexes, from each vertex to this line right here. And when I draw that line, it must be straight and it must intersect this line perpendicular at a perpendicular angle. I'm going to try and say perpendicularly. That's a hard word to say sometimes. So let's start with B. In fact, I don't even want to use that. I want a ruler. So there's actually a few different tools. Now you can use your protractor to do this. It's just harder for me to use it. Now here's the hardest part of this. Getting it lined up so that it is a 90-degree angle. And I think it'd be a lot easier for me to do it with a regular tool. So I'm going to draw this line. Now, when I remove the ruler, I can set this up here, and I'm going to put the middle of the compass right on it. I'm going to move it. And if I get this to line up on 180, see how the line's on 180 and 0? And if I look here, see how this line is right on the 90 right here? Oop, the 90 just gets bigger. But you see here's the 90 where the pen is? I see that this line is right on it. So I know it intersects it at a 90-degree angle. In fact, that just gave me an idea. I can use this compass. If I make this just a little bit larger, like this, I can go through here and I can line up 90 degrees, 90 degrees, and I can make little marks here. And see those purple marks that I just made? Now, if you got a compass, you can do the same thing. It's a little bit easier for me. These tools are a little bit more cumbersome. So I'm lining it up, and let's use a different color here. Let's use green. Now, one of the things I'm going to do is I'm just going to extend this line. I don't know how far I want to extend it. I'm just going to extend it a good difference. Now, when I set this up again, I'm going to come up here. Now, you might be asking, but Mr. Lt1, you did not make sure it's 90 degrees. Well, if you notice, when I move this ruler around, as long as I don't do anything, it's already set up. It's not, the angle stays the same. So it's the same as the original angle. So that's one advantage I have over you. And I'm actually going to set it back up here on this purple one. I probably should have done this right away. And I'm going to extend this line a little bit further. So the first thing you must do is you must draw lines from A, vertex A to the middle, and this is going to be called your what? This is going to be your line of symmetry. This is what's going to divide the two pieces in half. So that's called the line of symmetry. And notice how I drew a line from A to this line, from B to this line, and from C to this line. And they're all 90-degree angles. That's where I use this. And I can set it up here and I can check. So, yep, 90 degrees. This should be, because I used it before, set it right on that line, 90 degrees. Now the other thing I can use is I can use this right here. If I set it up on the line, it'll actually help me set up a 90-degree angle as well. In there. So, any questions so far? If you do, make sure you ask when you get in class. Now I'm going to get rid of that, because I know these lines are 90 degrees. Now the next thing you have to do is you have to make sure when you draw this line on the other side, so this line is going to be over here. What I need these two to be the same length. So the distance from here to this line here must be the same over here. Now you can do it a couple different ways. You can use a ruler, and some people like to use a ruler. I like to use a drawing compass. So what I'm going to do is set the point there, and I'm going to set this down. Now I'm going to have to do something like this. I'm going to have to use the upside down one. You guys shouldn't have that issue. So I have to rotate it a little bit. So do you see how this matches up right here? So the distance, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to, ooh, shoot, right here. So I'm just going to rotate it around, and I'm going to make a little mark right there. So I know right here is going to be what? What vertex is that going to be? Oops, sorry about that. This is going to be my new A1, because it's my image. So I'm going to do that same thing. I probably should have done that in blue pen, because I can actually change the pen color, and I could have matched these lines up. So I'm going to rotate this up a little bit, and I'm going to bring it in and see how the distance between these two. Now if I just take this and move it over here and draw another little line in, there's going to be my B. I'll go ahead and change pen colors right away. It's pretty cool that I can do that. So I'm going to rotate this around here, and I'm going to do that. So now when I use my pen right here, this point right here, it's going to be my new C1. And if I go grab purple, this right here is my new B1. So this should be the same as this. This line should be the same as this line. And this line should be congruent to this line. It should be the same. So I set up the lines. They intersect at a 90-degree angle. That's what some of you didn't do. And then this line has to be the same length. So what's the last thing I do? Okay, I'm going to grab a line, and I'm simply going to set it up. Oop, there's a little extra line in there. From here, I'm going to go from here to here. So now we see those two sides are congruent. And I can actually, let me get rid of that. There's a neat tool that I can do to kind of check on that. If I can get it just right. Let me do this. Yep, one more chance. Okay, so I've got those three. I'm going to group them together. And now look what I can do. I can actually rotate this image. I can flip it left to right. And now I can start to come up here, and if I'm really good, I can get this to sit right on top of the other one. And so you can see it's a little off, and they're always going to be just a tad off. But you can see that these two triangles are congruent. So are we done yet? Well, let's go back to the previous slide. So reflect the polygon over the given line. Okay, so we've done that. Now it says explain the steps you took to reflect the polygon and what is the relationship between the two figures. So I still have to do those two things. Now, let me grab another pen. Let's go with green. This one right here, explain the steps. Just go through the steps part by part. And some of the buzzwords I'm going to be looking for when you drew these lines in. Okay, I'm going to be looking for, are you using the word perpendicular? Or are you saying that these lines intersect at a 90-degree angle? So make sure you talk about a 90-degree angle in there, or perpendicular. I'm looking for words like equal distance. For example, when I draw a line from vertex A to the center line, it intersects it at a 90-degree angle. And when I extend that line outward, and then what you have to talk about is how when I use a compass or I use a ruler, I have to make sure that the distance from A to the line of symmetry is the same distance or is equal distance as from the line of symmetry to A1. So use words like 90 degrees, use words like equal distance. Sorry, it doesn't look like an A. Writing on this is not that easy, so I apologize if it's a little sloppy or not even straight. So you're looking for things like equal distance, 90 degree, and once you draw on all three, it's easy. Just say, I'm going to repeat the steps. Once you do one, I'm going to repeat the steps for vertex B and vertex C, and then you connect the lines. So let's go back. Am I done yet? No. Let's go to a different pen. Let's go to black. What is the relationship between the two figures? Well, this is where, again, you can talk about how they are mirror images of each other. They're mirror images. And that should, between those two, or talk about how everything's equal distance, which would be the same as talking about a mirror image, how they're the same. So if you do a good job, if you can show how you reflect this and you can explain how you did it, because in math, you really have to know why you're doing it. A lot of times students will just do it and they don't really know why they did it. Well, if you can explain it, you know how you did it. So again, if you have any questions, just ask me in class.